Amelia Carter had learned very early that silence could be louder than words. It followed her through hallways, clung to her clothes, and sat beside her in every classroom, like an invisible shadow no one else could see. She wasn't the kind of girl teachers noticed. She wasn't loud, confident, or popular. She didn't laugh in groups or raise her hand with excitement. She simply observed, listened, and carried a world inside her mind that no one ever tried to understand. The morning of the calculus test began like every other. The winter air was cold and sharp, brushing against her cheeks as she walked toward the school building. Students gathered in clusters, their voices mixing with the sound of footsteps and distant traffic. Amelia kept her head down. She always did, not because she was afraid, but because she was tired. Tired of the looks, the whispers, the assumptions. Inside, the school smelled like old paper and coffee. Lockers slammed. Laughter echoed. Someone brushed past her without apologizing. She didn't react. She had learned that reacting only gave people more power. Instead, she focused on the notebook clutched tightly in her hands. It was worn and slightly bent at the corners. Inside were pages filled with formulas, scribbles, diagrams, and thoughts written late into the night. Mathematics had always been her refuge. Numbers never mocked her. Equations never judged her. They only demanded patience and honesty. If you listened carefully, they revealed their secrets. That was something people rarely did. When Amelia entered the calculus classroom, a few students glanced up. One of them smirked. Another whispered something that made the others laugh quietly. She ignored them and walked to the last row, the same seat she had chosen since the first day of the year. It gave her distance. It gave her space to think. Her teacher, Mrs. Henderson, stood at the board, reviewing problems. She was known as one of the strictest teachers in the school. She believed in discipline and excellence, and she had little patience for mistakes. Amelia respected her, even admired her, but Mrs. Henderson had never truly seen her. To her, Amelia was simply another quiet student who barely spoke. "Today," Mrs. Henderson said, turning to the class, "we will solve a problem that only a few of you may fully understand. This is advanced material. If you can grasp this, you are ready for the highest level of mathematics." The room fell silent. Students straightened in their seats. Some looked excited, others nervous. Amelia felt her heart beat faster. She loved challenges. Mrs. Henderson began writing on the board. The equation grew longer and more complex with each line. Integrals nested inside other integrals. Variables intertwined. Limits approached infinity. Even the confident students exchanged uneasy looks. "This problem," Mrs. Henderson continued, "is known for breaking confidence. Many university students struggle with it. Let's see what you can do." She stepped back. Who would like to try? Several hands that had been raised at the beginning slowly lowered. A few students avoided eye contact. Someone laughed nervously. Then one boy stood up. He was known as the best in class. Smart, confident, admired. He approached the board with a slight smile. The room watched. He wrote quickly at first, then slowed, then paused. Minutes passed. His smile faded. He erased a line, then another. Finally, he stepped back, defeated. "I'm not sure," he admitted. A murmur spread across the room. Mrs. Henderson nodded. "Good attempt. Anyone else?" No one moved. Amelia felt something stir inside her. The equation on the board was not unfamiliar. She had seen something similar in an old textbook she found in a second-hand shop. She had spent weeks trying to understand it, failing many times, crying in frustration, and then trying again. Her fingers tightened around her notebook. Her heart raced. She wanted to raise her hand, but fear held her back. The laughter, the whispers, the looks. Then someone behind her said loudly, "Why don't you try, Amelia? You look like you know everything." The class laughed. Heat rose to her cheeks. She kept her eyes down. But Mrs. Henderson turned. "Amelia?" The room grew quiet again. For a moment, she considered shaking her head, staying invisible, letting the moment pass. That was the easier choice, the safer one. But something inside her refused. Maybe it was the long nights. Maybe it was the voice of her mother telling her she was stronger than she believed. Maybe it was the memory of every time she had been underestimated. Slowly, Amelia stood. The silence deepened. She walked to the board, each step heavy but determined. She could feel eyes on her, hear faint whispers, sense disbelief. She picked up the marker. Her hand trembled slightly. She closed her eyes for a second and took a deep breath. Then she began. At first, the class watched with amusement. They expected mistakes. They expected hesitation. But Amelia moved steadily. She wrote each step with care and precision. Her mind was calm now. The noise faded. The classroom disappeared. It was just her and the problem. Minutes passed. The laughter stopped. Whispers turned to silence. Even Mrs. Henderson leaned forward, watching closely. Amelia reached the middle of the solution, the most difficult part, the part where the earlier student had failed. She paused. Her heart pounded. Then she remembered a night she had solved it for the first time, sitting on the floor, surrounded by papers, exhausted but determined. She remembered the moment the solution had clicked, the joy, the tears. Her hand moved again. One step. Another. The final transformation. She wrote the answer. The marker slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. For a moment, no one spoke. The room felt frozen in time. Then Mrs. Henderson walked slowly toward the board. She examined every line, every step. Her expression changed from curiosity to shock. "This," she whispered, "is correct." The class gasped. Amelia turned, unsure of what to do. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. She expected disbelief, maybe accusations. Instead, she saw something she had never seen before: respect. Mrs. Henderson looked at her with wide eyes. "Where did you learn this?" Amelia hesitated. "I studied." The teacher shook her head in amazement. "This is university-level work." The boy, who had tried earlier, stared at her speechless. Others looked at each other confused. The girl they had ignored, the quiet one in the back, the invisible one. She had just solved the problem none of them could. And in that moment, Amelia Carter's silence shattered. But this was only the beginning. The silence that followed did not feel empty. It felt heavy, alive, and full of something Amelia had never experienced before. It was attention, real attention, not the kind that came with whispers or mocking smiles, but the kind that made people lean forward, curious and unsure. Amelia stood frozen near the board, unsure where to look. Her hands felt cold, her heart still racing. She wished she could disappear again, return to the safety of her seat, but the moment refused to let her go. Mrs. Henderson turned toward the class, still staring at the solution as if it might suddenly change. "Every step is correct," she said slowly. "Not only correct, but elegant." That word echoed in the room. Elegant. No one had ever used that word for Amelia. A boy in the front row raised his hand. Did she memorize it? The question hung in the air, sharp and uncomfortable. Amelia felt a familiar sting, doubt. It had always followed her. Mrs. Henderson looked at him firmly. "Memorization does not produce reasoning like this. She understands it." Another student spoke, quieter this time. "But how? We've never seen her answer in class." Mrs. Henderson turned to Amelia. "Would you mind explaining your approach?" Amelia swallowed. Speaking in front of people was harder than solving any equation. Words felt fragile in her mouth, easily broken. But something had shifted. She nodded. Her voice came out soft at first. "The integral looks impossible because it's layered, but if you change perspective, it becomes simpler." She picked up the marker again. Her hands no longer trembled. She explained each step, why she had chosen substitution, why she had changed the limits, why she had simplified the expression in a way most textbooks didn't show. The class listened. truly listened. The boy who had tried earlier leaned forward, eyes wide. "I never thought of that," he whispered. Amelia continued. Her confidence grew with every sentence. The classroom that had once felt like a battlefield now felt like a stage. When she finished, the room remained quiet for a moment. Then someone began clapping. It was slow at first, then others joined. Amelia's face flushed. She wasn't used to applause. She didn't know how to receive it. Mrs. Henderson raised her hand and the clapping faded, but the energy stayed. "Class, today you witnessed something important. Talent does not always sit in the front row. Intelligence does not always speak the loudest. Sometimes brilliance hides in silence." Amelia felt her chest tighten. She blinked quickly, fighting tears. The bell rang, but no one rushed out like usual. Students gathered their things more slowly. Some looked at Amelia with curiosity, others with admiration, a few with embarrassment. As Amelia reached her locker, she heard a familiar voice. "Well," said Vanessa, one of the most popular girls in school, "looks like the ghost can talk." Her friends laughed. Amelia turned slowly. Vanessa's smile was sharp, her eyes cold. "You think solving one problem makes you special? People will forget by tomorrow." The words were meant to hurt, and once they would have, but something inside Amelia had changed. "Maybe," she said calmly. Vanessa frowned, surprised by the lack of reaction. "But I won't forget," Amelia added quietly. For a moment, Vanessa had no response. Amelia closed her locker and walked away. That afternoon, Mrs. Henderson called her to the office. Amelia knocked softly. "Come in." The teacher looked different outside the classroom, less strict, more human. "Sit," she said. Amelia sat. Mrs. Henderson folded her hands. "Why have you been hiding?" Amelia looked down. "I wasn't hiding." "Yes, you were." Her voice softened. "I've been teaching for 20 years. I've never seen a student solve that problem so clearly, yet you never speak. Why?" Amelia thought of the past, the teasing in middle school, the times she answered wrong and people laughed, the day she stopped raising her hand. "I didn't think anyone cared," she said honestly. Mrs. Henderson's eyes filled with regret. "I should have noticed." The room was quiet. Then the teacher leaned forward. "There is a national mathematics competition next month. The best students from every school will participate. I want you to represent us." Amelia's heart skipped. "Me?" "Yes." "I've never competed." "That doesn't matter." Amelia felt fear and excitement mixed together. "What if I fail?" Mrs. Henderson smiled gently. "Then you fail. But you will not fail because you are incapable. You will only fail if you never try." The words stayed with Amelia long after she left the office. That night, she sat in her small room, surrounded by books and papers. Her mother knocked softly and entered with tea. "You look different today," her mother said. Amelia smiled. Something happened. She told her everything, the problem, the applause, the competition. Her mother listened, eyes shining. "I always knew," she said. "Knew what?" "That one day the world would see you the way I do." Amelia felt tears slide down her cheeks. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe it might be true. But she also knew something else. The competition would not be easy, and the world outside her classroom would not be kind. Yet somewhere deep inside, a quiet fire had begun to burn, and it would not go out again. The days that followed felt unreal to Amelia. Life at school had not magically transformed into a perfect dream, but something fundamental had shifted. The hallway that once felt like a tunnel of judgment now felt wider. The whispers were still there, but they carried curiosity instead of cruelty. Some students smiled at her. Others asked questions. A few simply watched, as if trying to understand how someone they had overlooked for years could suddenly stand in the center of attention. Amelia did not become loud or outgoing overnight. She was still quiet, still observant, but her silence no longer felt like a cage. It felt like a choice. Every afternoon, she stayed after school with Mrs. Henderson to prepare for the national competition. The classroom, once intimidating, had become a place of possibility. The board filled with problems that stretched her mind in new ways. Some days she solved them quickly. Other days she struggled for hours, frustration burning in her chest. "Good," Mrs. Henderson would say whenever Amelia groaned in defeat. "Struggle means growth." One evening, as the sun set and painted the windows orange, Amelia pushed her chair back and covered her face. "I can't do this one," she said. Mrs. Henderson glanced at the board. "You said that yesterday, and the day before." Amelia sighed. "This is different." The teacher smiled. "Every challenge feels different when it's new." Amelia looked at the problem again. It was complicated, layered with abstract reasoning and creativity, the kind of question that required not just knowledge, but intuition. "What if I freeze during the competition?" she whispered. "What if everyone is watching and my mind goes blank?" Mrs. Henderson leaned against the desk. "Then you breathe, and you remember who you are." Amelia looked up. "You are not the girl who hides in the back anymore," the teacher continued. "You are the girl who solved the impossible." The words ignited something inside her again. At home, her routine changed as well. Nights grew longer, books piled higher. Her mother often found her asleep at the desk, pen still in her hand. She would gently cover her with a blanket and turn off the light. One night, Amelia woke up in the middle of the dark. The house was quiet. She sat up, her mind still racing with equations. She walked to the kitchen and found her mother sitting alone, staring at a photo of Amelia as a child. "You should be sleeping," her mother said softly. "So should you." They smiled. "Are you scared?" her mother asked. Amelia nodded. "Yes. That means this matters to you." They sat in silence for a moment. "When I was your age, I wanted to be a scientist, but life had other plans. I never had the chance to try." Amelia reached for her hand. "You gave me the chance." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. As the competition approached, pressure grew. Students from other schools were rumored to be brilliant, prodigies, champions who had won multiple awards. Daniel often shared stories he heard online. "There's a guy from Eastwood Academy," he said one day, sitting beside Amelia in the library. "He solved university-level problems since he was 12. Amelia tried to stay calm. "That's impressive." "And a girl from Northbridge? She won last year. They say she never makes mistakes." Amelia smiled slightly. "Everyone makes mistakes." But later, alone, doubt crept in. What if she wasn't enough? What if her one moment of brilliance had been luck? The night before the competition, she barely slept. Thoughts collided in her mind. Fear, hope, pressure, expectations. In the morning, the sky was pale and quiet. Her mother drove her to the venue, a large university building filled with students from across the country. The air buzzed with nervous energy. Amelia stepped out of the car and froze. Groups of confident students laughed and discussed problems as if they were casual conversations. She suddenly felt small again, invisible. Her mother touched her shoulder. "Look at me." Amelia turned. "You belong here," her mother said firmly. The words grounded her. Inside, the hall was vast. Long tables, hundreds of participants, judges and organizers moving with efficiency. Amelia found her seat. Her hands felt cold. She closed her eyes and breathed slowly. The test began. The first problem was manageable. The second required creativity. The third was difficult. Then she reached the final question. Her heart stopped. It looked impossible, even more complex than the one she had solved in class. Layers of abstraction, deep reasoning, time slipping away. Around her, students scribbled quickly. Some paused, others frowned. Amelia's mind went blank. Fear surged. This was her nightmare. She closed her eyes. She remembered the classroom, the board, the silence, the moment she chose courage instead of fear. She opened her eyes again. Slowly she began. Minutes passed, then more. The world faded. The noise disappeared. It was just her and the problem. Step by step, she found patterns, hidden structures, a path where none seemed to exist. Time was almost over. Her heart pounded as she wrote the final line. The bell rang. She dropped her pen. Exhaustion washed over her. She didn't know if she was right. She didn't know if she had done enough. But she knew one thing. She had given everything. And for the first time in her life, that felt like victory. After the test ended, the hall slowly filled with noise again. Chairs scraped, papers rustled. Some students looked relieved, others frustrated. A few seemed confident, already discussing answers with friends. Amelia stayed seated for a moment, staring at her hands. They were still shaking. She felt empty and full at the same time. Empty because the pressure that had built for weeks had suddenly disappeared. Full because every emotion she had been holding back now rushed through her all at once. Fear, hope, exhaustion, and a quiet sense of pride. When she finally stood, her legs felt weak. She walked outside, searching for her mother in the crowd. The cold air hit her face, bringing her back to reality. Her mother waved from across the courtyard and hurried toward her. "How was it?" Amelia took a deep breath. "Hard." "That means you did well," her mother said with a smile. "I don't know if I solved the last one." Her mother held her shoulders gently. "You tried. That is enough." Amelia nodded, but inside she wasn't sure. For the first time, she wanted more than just trying. She wanted to win, not for fame, not for recognition, but to prove to herself that she was capable of standing among the best. The results would be announced in the evening. The waiting felt unbearable. Hours stretched endlessly. Amelia and her mother sat in a quiet cafe near the university. Amelia tried to read, but the words blurred. She tried to eat, but her stomach refused. Around them, other students and families gathered. Conversations floated through the air. Some sounded confident, others anxious. At one table, Amelia overheard two students talking. "That last question was impossible," one said. "I heard only a few people even attempted it," the other replied. Amelia's heart beat faster. What if she was one of them? What if she had actually solved it? The thought both excited and terrified her. As evening approached, they returned to the university hall. The atmosphere was electric. Hundreds of people filled the room. Judges sat at the front. A large screen displayed the competition logo. Amelia's hands grew cold again. Daniel had traveled with the school group and spotted her in the crowd. "You look like you're about to faint," he joked nervously. "I might," Amelia admitted. "You did amazing, I know it." She smiled weakly. "How?" He shrugged. "Because you always do." The lights dimmed slightly. The host stepped onto the stage and began speaking about excellence, dedication, and the future of mathematics. Amelia barely heard the words. Her heart pounded so loudly it drowned everything else. They began announcing the top 10. Each name echoed through the hall. Applause followed. Students walked to the stage, proud and relieved. Amelia waited. Her name was not called. A small voice inside her whispered, "Maybe you didn't make it." They reached the top 5. Still nothing. Her chest tightened. She forced herself to breathe. Maybe trying really was enough. Then the host paused. "Now," he said, "we will announce the top 3. The room fell silent. Third place? A boy from Eastwood Academy. Loud applause. Second place? The defending champion from Northbridge. Even louder applause. Amelia's mind went blank. There was only one place left. She felt strangely calm now. The fear had disappeared. In its place was acceptance. No matter what happened, she had changed. She had faced her fear. She had stepped forward when silence felt safer. "And first place," the host said slowly, "goes to—" The pause felt endless. Amelia Carter. For a moment, nothing made sense. The name sounded distant, unreal. Daniel grabbed her arm. "That's you!" The crowd erupted. Applause thundered. Amelia stood, but her legs refused to move. Her mother pushed her gently forward, tears streaming down her face. She walked to the stage in a daze. The lights felt warm, the applause overwhelming. When the medal was placed around her neck, reality finally reached her. She had done it, the quiet girl, the invisible one. She looked into the audience and found her mother. Their eyes met. All the years of doubt, pain, and loneliness dissolved in that moment. The host handed her the microphone. Her hands trembled again, but this time not from fear, from emotion. "I used to think," she said softly, "that being quiet meant being weak. I thought if no one noticed you, it meant you didn't matter." The room listened in complete silence. "But today, I learned something different. Silence can be strength. It can be patience. It can be focus. And sometimes, it can be the beginning of something powerful." Her voice broke slightly. "If you feel invisible, don't give up. Someone will see you, and even if they don't, see yourself." The applause returned, louder than before. But the greatest victory was not the medal. It was the girl who finally believed in herself. The night after the competition, Amelia could not sleep. The medal lay on the small table beside her bed, catching the soft glow of the streetlight through the window. She had touched it so many times that it already felt warm and familiar. Yet every time she looked at it, her heart raced again, as if the moment on stage were happening all over. She turned on her side and stared at the ceiling. For years, her dreams had been quiet and private, something she guarded carefully because she feared the world would laugh at them. But now, those dreams felt real. They had shape, they had weight, they had a future. In the next room, she heard her mother moving softly. Amelia got up and walked out. She found her mother sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, just like many nights before. But tonight, her eyes were brighter, lighter. "You still haven't slept?" her mother said gently. "Neither of you." They smiled at each other. Amelia sat down and held the medal in her hands. "It still doesn't feel real." Her mother reached across the table and touched her cheek. "It is real, and you earned every part of it." For a moment, Amelia felt like a little girl again, the same child who used to cry over homework and whisper that she was not good enough. She remembered every moment of doubt, every tear, every lonely night. "I was so scared," Amelia admitted. "Even when they called my name, I thought they had made a mistake." Her mother shook her head. "The only mistake would have been if you never tried." They sat in silence, but it was a peaceful silence, full of understanding and love. The next morning, Amelia returned to school. She expected curiosity, maybe attention, but she was not prepared for what happened. As she walked through the entrance, students began clapping. At first, she thought it was for someone else, but the sound grew louder as she moved forward. People smiled, some cheered, others called her name. Amelia stopped, overwhelmed. Her chest tightened. She didn't know where to look. Daniel appeared beside her, grinning. "You're famous now." She laughed softly. "Please don't say that." But the truth was, everything had changed. Teachers congratulated her. Younger students stared with admiration. Even those who once ignored her now wanted to talk. Then she saw Vanessa standing near the lockers. For a second, Amelia felt the old fear return. But Vanessa did not look cruel today. She looked uncertain. When Amelia approached, Vanessa spoke first. "Congratulations." The words sounded strange coming from her. "Thank you," Amelia replied. Vanessa hesitated. "I was wrong about you." Amelia studied her face. The apology seemed real. "It's okay," Amelia said, and she meant it. Holding anger felt heavy, and she no longer wanted that weight. In calculus class, Mrs. Henderson asked Amelia to share her experience. As she spoke, she noticed something new. Students were not just listening, they were inspired. She could see hope in their eyes, the same hope she had once searched for. After class, a shy girl approached her. She looked younger, nervous, and reminded Amelia painfully of herself. "I'm not good at math," the girl said quietly, "but I want to be. How did you start?" Amelia smiled. "I wasn't good at first either." The girl's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes, I just kept going, even when it was hard, even when I failed." The girl nodded slowly, as if those words meant everything. That moment stayed with Amelia all day. Winning the competition had felt incredible, but helping someone believe in themselves felt even more powerful. Weeks passed, opportunities began to appear: scholarships, invitations, mentorship programs, universities showing interest. The future she once thought impossible now opened in front of her. But Amelia did not forget who she had been. She continued helping classmates, tutoring students, and encouraging those who felt invisible. One evening, as she walked home, she paused and looked at the sky. The sunset painted the world in soft gold and pink. The same sky she had seen 1,000 times suddenly looked different. She realized something important. Her life had not changed because she solved one problem. It had changed because she chose courage, because she stepped forward when fear told her to stay silent. Her mother joined her outside, wrapping a warm scarf around her shoulders. "What are you thinking?" Amelia smiled. "About the future." "And?" "It's big and a little scary." Her mother laughed softly. "Good. That means it's worth it." Amelia looked ahead, her eyes shining with determination. "I want to become someone who creates solutions, not just in mathematics, but in life. I want to show people that they matter, that being quiet does not mean being weak." Her mother squeezed her hand. "You already are." Amelia felt warmth fill her heart. The journey was not over, it had only just begun. There would be new challenges, new fears, new moments of doubt. But she was no longer the girl hiding in the back of the room. She was the girl who stood up, the girl who believed, the girl who proved that brilliance can come from anywhere. And somewhere, in classrooms and quiet corners, other invisible students would hear her story and find the courage to raise their hands too. Because sometimes the greatest triumph is not solving the hardest problem, it is discovering your own strength. If this story touched your heart and inspired you, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful emotional and motivational stories every week. Your support helps us bring more life-changing stories to you. Yellow.